Hello guys, my name is Trevor Barnes, welcome to Alley Ridge, and today is the start of a new series here. I'm calling it Windows versus Mac versus Linux. Over the next couple of weeks, we'll be doing some tests on tasks that are best done with Mac and Windows and Linux, and coming to conclusions of what is the best operating system. Spoiler alert, there is no best operating system. This entire idea for this series all came because of a couple of comments we've gotten on recent videos. We've done a lot of videos about OS X and Windows and Linux recently, and they've all stirred up their own little bits of criticism and other general comments that have resulted in us wanting to do this series. Because, like I say every time I talk about this type of stuff, I'm not trying to get into a debate with people. There are legitimate reasons why any operating system is the best for whatever your task is at hand. At the same time, you kind of have to respect people's opinions for their specific use case. It's almost like politics. You don't want to bring it up, and if someone has a different opinion than you don't argue it. You should just respect it and leave it alone. That's how people really should look at their operating systems, but unfortunately, that's not the world we live in. So starting this series off, I want to give some of my initial thoughts and opinions, as well as go over some of the comments that kind of drove this series to become a thing. So this all started on our Linux Is It the Future video. N1 commented, Linux is the future because open source is the future and no spyware. Open source may be the future. However, closed down systems are always going to be the mainstream thing just because those are the things that the most amount of money is going to be behind. Like Apple or even Windows, which is not open source by any means. I mean, Linux might be the future, but it only represents an extremely small percentage of computers, at least in 2018. Now, can that number change and is it growing? Of course, but not by those numbers. On that same video, Ultimate Bruce says, this video did not need to be a 10-minute detour just to not show that installing Ubuntu is exactly as hard as doing a manual install of Windows, if not easier. That's where I'm also gonna disagree here. Windows makes it incredibly easy to download and make a bootable installation of Windows 10. There's a tool for it, all one program. As of right now, no real Linux distros really have that. Now, sure, someone's gonna point out this Linux distro has a application install, it does it, whatever, great. Ubuntu doesn't, the biggest distro out there. What we were trying to do in that video was Ubuntu. You have to use a third-party application, and what people have to remember is we're talking about average consumers here. You're talking about your mom, your dad, and let's not pretend your mom and dad is a astrophysicist or works for NASA or something. We're talking about average people. They don't know how to do all that. But I will say that was all mild until I got to my last video I did a couple days ago, Microsoft, big mistake. In that video, we had, and I apologize for pronouncing this name a little iffy, Gilksing, probably butchering the hell out of that. Windows 10 is a rabid dog that needs to be put down. I'm running DaVinci Resolve 15 on Linux, a full supported professional video editor, which is just brilliant. No offense, mate, maybe it's not just Windows 10 which is the problem. Maybe it's your unwillingness to learn a different program for your workflow. Linux is just about the best computing experience available right now. Okay, I'm not a big gamer, but it's 90% ready, and if you're really MS Office, use it in your browser. I've loved and used Windows since XP, not anymore, it's a disaster. And your answer is to go to Mac? Oh boy, good luck with that. And that was the comment that drove me insane. And really, it's quite simple why. Number one, let's just dissect this for a second. Windows 10 is a rabid dog needs putting down. It's a very aggressive, but Windows 10 has problems right now. We're on the same page up to that. DaVinci Resolve. I spent a decent bit of time with DaVinci Resolve trying to get it working correctly, both in Windows and actually on Linux when I was using Linux primarily for a couple months. There's nothing inherently wrong with DaVinci Resolve. I edited actually several videos that you guys saw that we've been creating over the last little bit on DaVinci Resolve. However, the problem with DaVinci Resolve is the minimum requirements. Unless you have a fully spec'd out awesome machine, like fully spec'd out, you're gonna struggle with it. Even having a beast of a machine of my Alienware gaming laptop, it struggled. Now I blame a little bit of that on my Windows issues I was having, which I talked about in my previous video. However, even on Linux, it was not fun. The other problem with Linux right now, to kind of address the Linux is the best computing experience available right now, where do I begin? I liked Linux a lot. I defended it a lot in my course of using it for about 2 months. However, here's the real deal with Linux. it's not 90% ready, it's maybe 60% ready. It's just a ridiculous comment because it's just not ready. Driver support being one of the biggest issues. The fact that no matter if you have an AMD graphics card or an NVIDIA graphics card, you still are having very iffy experience with it. Nothing's consistent. And that's my biggest issue I had with Linux, was there was just no consistency to my experience. One day it would work great, the next day I was having issues. And there's no support really for it. And for someone like me that's worked in IT and have that kind of technical experience, I could make it work. I could have, but I didn't want to compromise to make it work when there is just something better that's easier to deal with. And also, I don't need my Microsoft Office suite. I just need reliability. So that brought me to Apple. As I discussed in my last video, I'm going full Apple. I'm not saying I love that decision either. I'm not saying I don't dislike the company and a lot of their practices they're doing right now with support and things like that. I'm not saying any of that. What you gotta realize is their products work. They work as intended, they work as designed, and when they don't, you have a great structure of support to fix it. Are there flaws? Absolutely. I don't want to support that company right now. There's a lot of things I don't like about current gen MacBooks and the iMac Pro disaster, and the fact they're still selling computers that are several years out of date for incredibly too much money. But their system works for someone like me that just doesn't want to deal with it at this point. Working in IT so long, fixing other people's problems, you realize you don't want to have all the problems yourself. Now, does Mac have issues? Of course. Every operating system has issues, and like I said in the beginning of this video, they all suck. But they all have their pros and cons, they all have their benefits and disadvantages, and that's what this series is going to take a look at, going through all of that. This series at the end will conclude what the best operating system is. I don't know who's going to win it, but it will conclude something. Let's just say that. Just remember, it doesn't matter if you're using a Windows computer, a Mac, or Linux, we welcome you here. Unless you're using Chrome OS. Then, how about you go watch someone else's YouTube video? Thanks for watching, guys. Let us know what you think about this new series. Give us suggestions if you have things you want us to test out between all those different operating systems. We'll go into more specifics of how we're going to be testing things and how we're going to be ranking things throughout the series in next video. But until then, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed, and we will see you next time.